identifying and healing from narcissistic people. Priya, a first-generation college graduate, lands her dream job at a prestigious law firm. When she shares the news with her boyfriend Carlos, he immediately downplays the achievement, claiming she hasn't really accomplished anything since she isn't a partner yet. Jordan, a dedicated teacher, spends his evenings and weekends creating an innovative curriculum for students. During a faculty meeting, his principal and career mentor presents his work as her own, leaving Jordan feeling confused, betrayed, and unappreciated. Lang, a young artist, tries to open up to his father about his struggles with depression. His father completely shuts down the conversation, asserting that Lang has no reason to be sad since he's never had to work in the fields as a boy, like his father and grandfathers. If any of these scenarios were to happen in isolation, they'd be unfortunate interactions that left individuals feeling unheard or dismissed. But in some relationships, moments like these happen over and over again. People who exhibit significant narcissistic personality traits may not have a clinical diagnosis, but that doesn't mean they don't leave many around them feeling devalued, dismissed, and even questioning their own reality. And the solution isn't as easy as walking away for many people either. Anyone who works with, co-parents with, or lives next door to someone who leaves them routinely feeling drained, shamed, or manipulated may not be able to simply cut contact or pick up and move away. This blink tackles some key definitions around narcissistic behavior and personalities. It offers practical strategies for coping with these challenging relationships. By recognizing narcissistic behaviors and learning effective ways to set boundaries and maintain your sense of self, you can navigate these difficult dynamics and prioritize your well-being, regardless of your life circumstances. And just a word of caution before we begin that for some, this topic may bring up strong emotions. It's always okay to take this at your own pace and reach out to professionals for additional support if you need it. What are narcissistic traits anyway? Like many buzzwords, it can be hard to get at the meaning of a term that's thrown around almost haphazardly these days. So let's begin with some definitions. When we talk about narcissistic personality traits, there are some common characteristics to look out for. These may include an inflated sense of self-importance, a constant need for admiration and validation, a lack of empathy for others' feelings, and a tendency to manipulate or exploit people for personal gain. Narcissistic individuals may also have a strong sense of entitlement, believing they deserve special treatment or privileges. While these traits exist on a spectrum and don't always indicate a clinical disorder, they can still have a significant impact on those around them. Narcissistic personalities can manifest in different ways, and it's helpful to recognize some of the common types. The grandiose narcissist is perhaps the most well-known type, characterized by an overinflated sense of self-importance and a constant need for admiration. They may be charming and charismatic at first, but their lack of empathy and tendency to exploit others often becomes apparent over time. On the other hand, the vulnerable narcissist may appear more shy or introverted on the surface. They still harbor grandiose fantasies and a sense of entitlement, but they may express it through passive-aggressive behavior or by playing the victim to gain sympathy and attention. The communal narcissist is often found in positions of influence, like community organizers, gurus, or coaches. They present themselves as selfless or enlightened figures, but subtly manipulate everyone to serve their own interests. This type of narcissism can be particularly challenging to recognize, as it often masquerades as altruism. By contrast, the malignant narcissist exhibits more overtly aggressive and exploitative behaviors. They may regularly belittle and undermine others, creating a toxic and hostile environment for everyone. Other types of narcissists include the high-functioning narcissist, who may be successful in their professional lives but exhibit narcissistic traits in personal relationships. The cerebral narcissist, who derives a sense of superiority from their intellect, feeling themselves superior to everyone else. And the somatic narcissist, who is excessively preoccupied with their physical appearance. Regardless of the type of narcissistic personality you may be dealing with in your life, it's essential to remember that you can't control their behavior, but you can control your own response and choices. In the next section, we'll explore some practical strategies for coping with the challenges of interacting with narcissistic individuals in various areas of life. The impacts of narcissistic people. Dealing with narcissistic individuals can be emotionally draining. The constant gaslighting, devaluation, dismissal, neglect, manipulation, and betrayal can erode self-esteem and leave lasting scars, especially in close relationships like parent-child or intimate partners. So let's explore some of the common experiences of those who repeatedly encounter narcissistic behavior. Gaslighting is a common tactic used by narcissists to control and manipulate others. Sarah's partner, David, constantly questions her memory and perception of events. When she expresses how hurt she is that he forgot their date night, he tells her they never discussed it, even when Sarah is certain of her recollection. Over time, this gaslighting tactic that David uses to avoid responsibility leads Sarah to doubt her own perception of reality. She even feels dependent on David's version of the truth. Devaluation is another painful experience often faced by those in relationships with narcissists. Michael's sister, Jessica, constantly makes subtle digs about his appearance, accomplishments, and friend group. Careful not to do it in front of others, she targets her insults on the things she knows Michael struggles with. Her constant devaluation leaves Michael feeling unworthy and struggling to maintain a sense of self-worth. Dismissal and neglect are also common themes in narcissistic relationships. Emily's mother, Amanda, is more concerned with maintaining her own image as a supermom than with meeting her daughter's emotional needs. Amanda regularly cancels plans with Emily to attend social events and ignores her daughter's attempts to share her disappointment. This emotional neglect leaves Emily feeling unloved and unimportant, carrying these wounds into adulthood. Manipulation is another hallmark of narcissistic behavior. Daniel's best friend Tom constantly uses guilt and shame to control him. Whenever Daniel tries to decline an invitation or say no to helping him out, Tom is quick to call him selfish or a fake friend. This emotional manipulation leaves Daniel feeling trapped and unable to assert his own needs and boundaries. Betrayal is perhaps the most devastating experience in narcissistic relationships. Like Olivia, who discovers that her partner Mark has been having an affair with someone they both know. When confronted, instead of apologizing, Mark first tries to diminish the seriousness of the affair, and then turns around and blames Olivia herself for his cheating, claiming that if she'd paid more attention to him, he wouldn't have strayed. This betrayal shatters Olivia's trust and leaves her questioning her own worth and judgment. The cumulative effects of these experiences can be profound. Those who repeatedly encounter narcissistic behavior may struggle with anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. They may find themselves constantly seeking approval and validation, even in other relationships. The emotional trauma can also lead to physical symptoms like headaches, digestive issues, and sleep disturbances. So it's important to recognize that narcissists rarely change their behavior, even when confronted with the pain they cause. They may offer temporary apologies or promises to do better, but these are often insincere and short-lived. Ultimately, those in relationships with narcissists must prioritize their own well-being and establish firm boundaries to protect themselves from future harm. Boundaries keep you sane. When dealing with narcissistic individuals, it's essential to understand that they're unlikely to change their behavior, even when confronted with the negative consequences. This can be a difficult reality to accept, especially in close relationships where someone holds out hope for improvement. But recognizing this truth is an important step in prioritizing your own well-being and learning to cope with the challenges of narcissistic relationships. Consider the story of Julia, who's been married to her husband Eric for 10 years. Despite countless arguments and attempts to communicate her feelings, Eric consistently dismisses Julia's concerns and turns the blame back on her. He blames all their arguments on her being too sensitive and blames his anger on her constant negativity about their relationship. Julia has tried everything she can think of to get through to Eric, but his behavior remains the same. In situations like Julia's, it's important to understand that narcissists often lack the self-awareness and empathy necessary to truly understand the impact of their inability to validate others or empathize. Narcissistic people are more concerned with maintaining their own image and sense of superiority than with genuinely addressing the needs of others. So, what can you do? Well, the first step is to shift your focus from trying to change the narcissist and how they relate to you, and instead focusing inward toward working on yourself. It means setting clear boundaries, prioritizing your self-care, and learning to validate your thoughts and feelings when they're dismissed or gaslit. Now, let's consider Joaquin, who's always looked up to his older brother Matthew. Sadly, Matthew constantly belittles Joaquin's accomplishments and interests, often trying to humiliate him in front of friends and schoolmates. Instead of continuing to seek Matthew's approval, Joaquin decides to focus on his own personal growth. He stops trying to share his good news or interests with his older brother and nurtures a supportive friend group outside the home to validate his own experiences. Instead of continuing to feel diminished, Joaquin is supported by his family of choice. So the next important strategy in negotiating narcissism is to seek support from trusted friends, family members, or mental health professionals. Surrounding yourself with people who affirm your worth and provide a safe space to process your experiences can be incredibly healing. Let's consider the story of a young woman named Nina. She always had a difficult relationship with her mother, who constantly criticizes her appearance, home, and life choices in every conversation they have. Nina feels trapped and alone in this dynamic until she reaches out to a therapist who helps her understand that her mother's behavior is not her fault. With her therapist's guidance, Nina starts practicing setting clear boundaries. She learns to use I statements to communicate her feelings and needs calmly but firmly. When her mother makes a critical comment about her appearance, Nina responds flatly that she feels confident in her choices and would prefer it if her mother refrained from commenting on her appearance. Nina also learns to set limits on the amount of time she spends with her mother and the topics they discuss. She communicates her love for her mother while also emphasizing her boundaries. When her mother tries to cross them anyway, Nina enforces consequences, like ending the conversation and taking time out for herself. Nurture yourself and your self-worth. In relationships with narcissistic people, it's easy to lose sight of your own identity and self-worth. The constant manipulation, gaslighting, and criticism can leave you feeling like a shell of your former self. That's why one of the most important strategies for coping with narcissistic behavior is to maintain a strong sense of self-worth and to prioritize your own interests and abilities. Amira, a woman just nearing retirement age, has been partnered to a narcissistic spouse, Sarah, for 15 years. Over time, Amira has given up many of her hobbies and passions to accommodate Sarah's demands for attention and emotional support. She used to enjoy painting and playing guitar with friends, but Sarah would often dismissively comment on how bad Amira's paintings were or how out of tune her guitar sounded. Over time, Amira lost touch with the activities that once brought joy and fulfillment, along with her social circle and friends. One day, Amira decided to start painting again, despite Sarah's disapproval. She set time aside each week to work on art, even if it meant facing snide remarks. As Amira immersed herself in this passion, she rediscovered parts of herself that she'd long forgotten. She then joined a local painting club and started to feel more confident and self-assured. She became less dependent on Sarah's opinion for her sense of self-worth. Developing your own interests and abilities is a powerful ally in the face of narcissistic relationships. When you engage in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, you're affirming your own worth and identity, separate from the narcissist's influence. This can be anything from pursuing a new hobby to volunteering for a cause you care about, to taking classes that advance your career. Another important aspect of maintaining your sense of self is nurturing relationships with people who support and affirm you. Surrounding yourself with friends, family members, or colleagues who value and respect you can provide a much-needed counterbalance to the narcissist's negative influence. Consider the case of Emily, a young professional who has a narcissistic boss. He constantly belittles her ideas and takes credit for her work. Emily starts to doubt her own abilities until she joins a networking group for women in her field. There, she meets other successful professionals who recognize and appreciate her talents. With their support and encouragement, Emily begins to see herself in a new light and gains the confidence to assert herself more at work. Maintaining your sense of self in a narcissistic relationship also means learning to trust your own thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. It's essential to remember that your experiences and emotions are valid, even if the narcissist tries to dismiss or deny them. One way to reinforce your trust in yourself is to keep a journal. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, and experiences can help you maintain a clear sense of reality and identify patterns of narcissistic behavior. When you start to doubt yourself, refer back to your journal entries for validation and clarity. Remember, maintaining your sense of self is an ongoing process. It requires dedication, self-compassion, and a willingness to prioritize your own needs and well-being. By developing your interests, nurturing supportive relationships, and learning to trust yourself again, you can build resilience in the face of narcissistic abuse. So, that was our blink to It's Not You by Dr. Ramani Durvasula. The main takeaway is that people with narcissistic personalities have a profound negative impact on those around them. While you can't change the narcissist's behavior, you can prioritize your well-being and reclaim your power. Strategies like setting boundaries, maintaining your sense of self, and seeking support outside the relationship can help. With patience, self-compassion, and the right tools, healing and growth are possible. Thanks so much for listening. If you have a moment, please leave us a rating or a comment. We always appreciate your feedback, and I'll see you in the next blink.